So JD Vance once defended Confederate statues. I know what you're thinking. Who's shocked? Of course he did. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone who's not from here comes down here and suddenly they're an apologist for the Confederacy. And they do it to try to fit in and be cool around their redneck cousins. Or I see someone in Minnesota or Wisconsin or Illinois sitting and waving a Confederate flag around. The minute I see that, it completely debunks all the arguments I hear around here, which is, oh, well, that's our heritage. Okay, well, if you're going to say that in East Tennessee, that's one thing. But if someone in Minnesota's waving it, how's it their heritage? What reason are they waving it for? There has to be something different. It can't be, you can't use the heritage argument. So anytime someone that ain't from here comes around and tries to be an apologist for the Confederacy, it just always rubs me the wrong way, because we've had to work so hard to overcome, and we've had to work so hard to deconstruct from the misinformation we were fed growing up. And yes, we all were. Everyone in my part of the world was told something different about the Civil War and about the Confederacy. I hear so many different angles of thought on it. And it just goes to show that the people in my part of the world, as they handed these stories down, they just tried to get more and more apologetic about it and try to make it go away and try to push it all under the rug. And those of us that saw it for what it really was and come to grips with it, we've worked really hard to move past it. But there's always people like JD Vance trying to drag us backwards in time. And that's what he did in this next clip.
We saw, I think a couple of weeks ago, there was a statue of Robert E. Lee taken down in Charlottesville. And, one of the crazy things about the Civil War, the way that I was brought up to understand the Civil War is like, I grew up in Ohio. We sort of very proud of Ohio's, obviously a very big part of the Union War effort, but it was fundamentally understood as a war of brother against brother. And yeah, the Union was on the right side, and we're glad the Union won, especially in Ohio. But at the end of the day, we did not hate the people who fought on the other side. We don't treat them as like terrible human beings. And now that's been totally ripped up, where if you even think that we should have a statue of somebody that was involved in that war on the other side, you're now a terrible person. You're a white supremacist. You're an evil person. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's not America to me. If you can't speak your mind, if you can't, I'm not an old guy. I'm 37 years old. If you can't even talk about the Civil War the way that I was taught to talk about it in school, then what measure of conservative values actually is being protected?
So yeah, obviously I changed positions in between takes because the sun came out so bright behind me that it was completely glaring the screen and no one could see me. So yeah, I thought that was a really good take and I didn't feel like redoing it. So there's that. But this is one of the most ridiculous arguments that I've heard growing up, is when someone says, well, that's not how I was taught to believe in it. That's not how I was taught to see it. That is one of the most tired arguments that I make against it. How you were taught to believe in it or see it or understand it is completely irrelevant, because you could be taught growing up that the word fucked meant hungry. Okay, you could. Your parents may say to you, you know what, if you get hungry, just say real loud that I'm fucked. Now, you might be able to say that around your house, but if you went to school and got in the middle of the cafeteria and blurted out I'm fucked, you'd probably get taken to the principal's office. So how you were taught about it or how you were taught to understand it is completely irrelevant to this argument. And when he says, oh, if you defend the Confederacy, you're called a white supremacist, I'm not saying that everyone that ever owned a Confederate flag or waved a Confederate flag or went to a Leonard Skinner show is a white supremacist. Not saying that at all. But I'm definitely saying that all white supremacists wave that flag, and all white supremacists show up at events waving that flag. And for whatever reason, that never seems to be a deal breaker to the JD Vances of the world. They never seem to call that part of it out. It just always circles back to, but that's not how I was taught to understand it. That's not how I was taught to believe it. I was taught to believe it just meant the Dukes of Hazzard, or I was taught to just believe it just meant Leonard Skinner. We've all heard those arguments growing up. I grew up in the 80s when the Dukes of Hazzard was the most popular show on TV. They had the General Lee with the Confederate flag on top of the car, okay? We all had those toys when we were growing up. I had an entire bed suit, like quilt and sheets and the curtains and the whole 9 yards. It was Dukes of Hazzard, okay? We all did, all right? We all grew up listening to bands like Skinner and Alabama and Hank Williams Jr. and Charlie Daniels. We grew up with that music and those flags waved in the background. But then as we grew up, we began to realize, you know what? When our family tells us it just means Southern pride, it just means you're proud of where you're from, actually, it don't. Actually, if you go to digging in and reading it and studying and learning all about it, you realize that we were flat out on the wrong side of history and there's no way you can slice it. We just were. And it's a hard truth that some people has to face up to. And the reason why it becomes such a hard truth for some people to swallow, I'm just going to be honest, is because when you grow up around here, your family loves you and they're good to you. And I'm not saying they're racist people. There's a whole lot of people in this part of the world that are not racist at all, don't have a racist bone in their body. They may have repeated racist things they didn't understand was racist, or they may have laughed at racist jokes they didn't understand was racist, but they don't have a hateful bone in their body. And they raise you up, and they're good to you, and they provide for you, and they put food on your table. And they're standing next to you at every funeral with their arms around you. They've always got your back. And then you're told that once upon a time, your ancestors fought to keep people enslaved. And you can't believe your papa would do that, because he's a good man. He worked hard. He provided for your family. He's good to you. He's always been there for you. You could always count on him. So it becomes really hard to believe that your family could have ever been in the wrong about anything. And so you just keep trying to push it under the rug by saying, well, we didn't mean nothing by it. That's not how I was taught to understand it. That's not how I was taught to believe in it. But the more you grow up and the more you look in the mirror and the more you realize what happened, you have to understand we were on the wrong side of history, okay? When I went back and studied my family, I was stunned to find that a lot of them, my ancestors, fought for the Union. I did have some that was on the Confederacy side. You could make the argument that it was brother against brother. If it was, one brother was on the wrong side of history, JD. I'm sorry. That's just the way it was. Because we can have these arguments, and we've had them for so many years. I've heard so many people, well, it wasn't really about slavery. It was about states' rights. I hear that one all the time, and we're hearing that same states' rights argument today about abortion. Oh, they just kicked it back to the states. They love using that. All that is a scapegoat. All that is a way to get out of accountability. That's what it is. But when they make that states argument, you have to say, okay, well, it was about states' rights. States' rights to do what? Well, you know, man, buy, sell, and trade. Yeah, well, what about buy, selling, and trading? Buying, selling, and trading what? And eventually you have to face up to the fact that we were on the side that wanted to buy, sell, and trade other human beings. And you have to realize that since the Civil War and since the Confederacy, there have been people, there have been hate groups that have latched on to that Confederate flag, and they use it as a symbol of intimidation. They use it as a symbol to say, listen, we hate you. Okay, that's why they're flying it. And you can be flying it for all the other reasons that you were taught to believe, but once a group like that gets a hold of something, it doesn't really even matter what it is, but once someone gets a hold of something like that, and they use it in that manner, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. You don't get to say, well, it means something different to me. You have to come home to reality. Now, I've told this story before in videos, but I know I've got a lot of new people here on the channel, so I'm going to share a story of the time that I was truly humbled by the Confederate flag and what it meant to me. I'm a huge fan of the band Leonard Skinner, and I've got Ronnie Van Zant tattooed on my arm. Unapologetically, he's my favorite singer-songwriter of all time. Loved his music. His music meant the world to me. And when you go back and watch a lot of those old videos, there was a big Confederate flag behind him. I've heard him explain it. I've heard him talk about how that the record company was trying to sell Southern rock music, and that's why that they used it. And I've read the story about how on the Street Survivors tour, he decided not to take it with him because he felt like it was attracting the wrong kind of people to his shows. So all I can do is hope that if Ronnie Van Zant had have survived that plane crash, he wouldn't have turned into a douchebag like his two younger brothers. But that being said, I love the man's music, and I had a flag that had the bird in the middle, and to me it just meant free bird. That's all it meant to me. I wasn't a racist person, didn't hate anyone. I just love Leonard Skinner, and I love Freebird. So I start playing in a band, and we're all just meeting at my house and jamming with each other. And I meet a black guy at work. And he's a little bit older than me, but he's a drummer, and he wants to come over and jam with me and my band. And I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome. Come on over. So I actually went and picked him up, gave him a ride to my house. And all the way there, he's excited. All the way there, he can't wait to see us jam. Right as we got to my driveway, I realized that flag was in my room. And I was going to do the classic, well, it means something different to me argument, which proves that I knew deep down it was wrong. But I said to him, I said, hey man, I just want to let you know there's something hanging in my room, and I want you to know how I mean it. I don't mean anything by it. I just mean Leonard Skinner. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. I see that flag all the time. It doesn't offend me. So I thought, oh, okay, cool. This black guy's not offended by it. So we go in my room, And this guy who's been so excited to see me play music is just looking at the floor. He won't look up. He doesn't even watch me play my guitar. Now, he's been talking about how he can't wait to hear me play. He never even looked toward my fretboard because the flag was hanging over my shoulder. And I realized immediately how uncomfortable it made him feel. And his demeanor and his temperament all changed. And there was no way that I could walk it back or dial it back at this point. So it was a long ride home. I dropped him off, and I'm trying to figure out how to approach it. But if I'm being brutally honest with you, I was afraid. I didn't know how to approach it. So I just let it be. I came back home and I was so disgusted that I went in my room and took the flag down and I threw it in the trash, which my dad was glad of. My dad has never liked the flag, and he was glad to see it go. He wouldn't let me hang it up in the window like all the other rednecks did. So I go back to work, and it's awkward between me and this guy. And I'm trying to invite him back over, and he's not really interested in coming back, but we've not had the conversation about that flag. So finally, I just keep on. I just hammer him to death till he finally comes back. And when he comes back the second time, he walks in, and I've replaced that flag with a poster of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And he just kind of looks around the room for a minute. He glances over in that direction, and when he doesn't see that flag, he just starts smiling. And he says, "All right, man, let's jam." And we're right back to being good with each other. We never had the conversation. We never talked about it. It never came up. But he was a completely different person once he realized that flag was out of my room. And I realized right then and there that it's got nothing to do with what it means to me. It's got nothing to do with what it means to someone else. It's got nothing to do with how you were taught to believe in it growing up. Those things are irrelevant. And when JD Vance comes with these kind of talking points and tries to defend the Confederacy and defend those statues, it's so funny to me when they make that argument, because they always say that the Democrats are the party of slavery, the Democrats are the party of the KKK. They love to use that talking point. Then why would they be for Democratic slave owners being recognized? We can learn about our history, we can study our history without glorifying people who were on the wrong side of it. That's the case. And that was a very humbling moment in my life. And it wasn't my last brush with the Confederate flag. They've been around me before. I'm sure someone could go out there somewhere in these dive bars I played and find a picture of one hanging over on a wall in some bar I played in. But I never looked at one the same after that experience. I never looked at it and thought, well, that's just about Skinnerd. That's just about what I think. I realized it meant something different to other people. And so I'll keep sharing that story in hopes that one person hears it and understands that this ain't about you. And it's not about how you were taught. And JD, if you're trying to come down here, you and Kid Rock, and fit in by waving that flag around and defending the Confederacy, take that shit somewhere else, because we've been trying to outgrow it for years. We've been trying to progress and move forward, and we don't need people like you taking us backwards.